On May 23rd of 2023, I started an experiment that I've kept secret on this channel. If you've seen our other videos, then you know that we typically help music producers who already have careers, but for this experiment, we decided to take a producer who was completely new to this business. No portfolio, no clients, no brand.
Monetizing music to be able to pay my bills with it seemed crazy, even though I saw people doing it, saw people like me doing it. Somehow it still seemed crazy.
And the results of this experiment were pretty astounding. After just 12 months, he is now able to pay his bills solely with music, has a solid network, social media following, and is working on projects that are featured on Billboard. And the point of this experiment was to prove that this career is still viable right now, this year, and that most of the complaining you hear online about our industry is just complaining. I'm going to take you step by step through the process of developing this producer so that you yourself have a general path to follow that is based on real evidence. And you will be surprised by how not complex all this really is. Our subject for this experiment is a producer based in Canada named Christian Sancto. He found us here on YouTube and reached out through our website and filled out the application. And as I was reading through his application, I was quickly able to spot what our first major obstacle was going to be. And this one kills most music careers before they even start. And that is a lack of time. Christian was super busy. He was a full-time student studying for his PhD and still had a job in addition to everything else we all have to do in life. And on top of all that, he also had a deadline. He needed this business to be up and running in 12 months by the time he graduated school, which brings us to step one of this path, choosing the right business model. Based on our experience, we knew that it was extremely important for Christian to only focus on one income stream for the next 12 months and nothing else. If he tried to go sell beats and then try to go pitch for sync placements and then try to go build a YouTube channel, then he was just going to end up overwhelmed and have little money to show for it. This is one of the biggest mistakes that new producers make. We just needed a model that A, is easy to start, B, is controllable, and C, pays decently well. This left us with really one option. Christian was going to go out and start as a freelance music producer, getting paid a fee to produce, write, and record songs directly for independent artists. Basically get paid to gain experience as a working producer. Doesn't matter if that's the business model he does forever, it's just what makes sense right now to get things started. Next was figuring out how much he should charge for those services. And this took about 3 seconds. In order for Christian to hit his financial goal, he needed to make $3,200 a month, which is how we determined what he needed to charge. A lot of producers use emotion when trying to figure out what to charge. We recommend starting off by just using math because it takes the emotion out of it. Since Christian had a busy life, he really can only do 4 songs per month comfortably, which means in order to reach $3,200 per month, his goal, each project has to be a minimum of $800. That's how we determined his starting rate. But this actually posed a completely new problem that we now had to fix, or this experiment was going to fail, which brings us to step 2. In order for Christian to charge someone $800 to produce a great song, he had to have actual evidence that he could deliver that. And the problem was, he did not. Christian wasn't brand new to music or producing songs. He was studying that in school, but everything he was producing up until this point was super avant-garde experimental music. It was interesting music, but he didn't have a portfolio yet that would make most artists feel comfortable handing over their hard-earned money. We didn't need 20 plus songs or anything like that, but we did need at least 3 solid tracks that demonstrated his ability to make commercially viable music. So that is when I called in my secret weapon. So what was Christian missing when he started sending you demos?
When he started, his production was super blocky and loop-based, so there was a real lack of arrangement. His vocals were overproduced, so everything was super heavily tuned, lack of compression, and usually too much EQ. And the vocal performances weren't very good, so he hadn't had a lot of experience of getting great vocals from vocalists.
And how did you get him up to speed and making commercially viable tracks quickly?
The first thing we did was really focus on bridging the gap between his finished and my finished. And we did that iteratively over a series of weeks. So we would then deep dive on things like arrangement and building a story within these productions, especially his vocal production, looking at every element of that from tuning all the way down to really carving a tone for the vocal. And really, really spending a lot of time on allowing him to feel like he's serving the song and serving the artist he's working with. And he ended up making great progress really quickly.
We are love. Yeah, you feel it. Even though I say mean things, I don't mean it. It's all love.
Okay, so now we have a business model and a portfolio to back it up. But to put things in perspective, at this point, we're already like 5 months into this journey, almost halfway through. So we are running out of time. We had to move through step 3 pretty quickly. Now, this is one of the steps where new producers waste an exorbitant amount of time when they're early on in their business, and that is branding. We didn't have time to go make logos, write a cute biography, build a website, and set up all of his social media profiles. I'm not saying branding isn't important, it definitely is, but in order to reach his goal, we just had to prioritize some things over others. I knew that the main tool that Christian was going to be using first to meet artists was Instagram, so to keep it simple, we only focused on that. I didn't need him to be a prolific content creator yet, but Christian's Instagram profile at the time didn't really look like a working producer. It looked like a regular guy. So I just needed him to make it clear that he was a producer and have a few pieces of content to back up that claim. If an artist saw his profile, they shouldn't have to guess who he is and what he does. And that's really it, nothing more. I had him add just a few things to his profile. A clear profile picture that shows his face. B, a simple line of text that makes it obvious what he does. C, a link tree where people could hear his work and contact him. And D, a few posts that showed the 3 songs from his portfolio. So around month 5, Christian was finally prepared, confident, and ready to go. And now the real work actually begins in step 4. This is the most important step of your journey because it's the first truly big hurdle that you'll have to overcome to make this career work. It's where, like many others, Christian almost gave up, but ultimately changed his life forever. Step 4 is actually getting paid. And since this is where most producers get really confused, we decided to just show Christian the basic fundamentals of freelancing, which is pretty simple. This doesn't require hope or dreams or luck or connections. It just requires a little math and a shit ton of hard work. Christian needs to land 4 songs per month at $800 each in order to hit his goal of $3,200, right? But we can't land clients unless we are sending out proposals. No proposals equals no clients. So the only thing Christian needs to focus on is the number of proposals he's making on a monthly basis. That's it. No other distractions. Since he is new, the best case scenario here is that 50% will say yes to his proposals. This means he needs to make at least 8 proposals in order to land 4 clients. That's 50%. But just like it would be weird to go up to strangers and ask them to marry us, we aren't going to go up to strangers and ask them to work with us. So for Christian to make 8 proposals each month, he needs to try to connect with a minimum of 120 artists that he can start a relationship with around 10% of them. So like 12 artists. Doesn't matter if these artists are local or remote. By starting a relationship, I just mean having a conversation to learn more about the artist, to uncover if they even have any needs, and maybe do a little session or something to see if there's some chemistry. Just keep it casual. Here's the point of doing this. He's just increasing his chances of being in a position where it would make sense to send a proposal to the artist. So Christian may say something like, hey, I enjoyed the conversation or session. If I was working with you, here's a few things that I would do based on what I've learned about you so far. And then he would casually say those things, but he's not really selling this here. He's just talking about what he would do. And he's just gauging if the artist is excited about that, because if they are excited about that, then they're going to start asking questions like, hey, what do you charge? Or, oh, that sounds cool. Like, how do you work with people? Those are the questions that we're looking for, because now there is actually a reason to have a more serious conversation and send a proposal. And that's it. That's the entire process. Rinse and repeat over and over and over again. Christian now knows exactly what actions to take in order to make 8 proposals every month. It's just math. But as you probably gathered, just because something is simple doesn't mean that it will be easy. Since Christian didn't have a network or a reputation yet, there were no artists reaching out to him, which makes meeting 120 artists a month pretty impossible. He was gonna have to go reach out to them until he started getting enough referrals or attracting enough artists through his own content. And Christian went on to contact over 1,500 artists in just a handful of months. He could have bypassed this step and waited for his content to start working, which is an option, but again, he needed to go learn the market in order to know what to make content about. Plus, we had a deadline to meet. And if you're thinking that, okay, so basically this is all just a numbers game, then unfortunately, you would be wrong. Although I wish it was, because even though Christian contacted a ton of artists and always hit his numbers, he was still smacked in the face left and right with obstacle after obstacle. So it wasn't just about the numbers. He had to develop skills. Like, for example, after busting his ass to finally get to a point where he was making proposals on a consistent basis, none of the deals were actually going through, so no money was being made. And moments like this are where most producers either quit entirely or get shiny object syndrome and jump to a different model that ultimately is going to have the same amount of obstacles, so the cycle just keeps repeating itself. But luckily, Christian didn't do either of those things, because underneath all of the tactics he learned, he also understood the main principle that we teach even our most established producers here at Dark Label. The principle is this: obstacles are a sign of growth, not failure. The only way to avoid obstacles is to not grow. So the next time an artist was unsure whether or not Christian could do a good job, he just put a guarantee in place that if they didn't like the song, he would give them their money back. Deals started to close. And because some artists were still saying he was too expensive, he created a higher price tier of his service to make his regular fee look more competitive. And more deals started to close. In order to get better responses when reaching out to artists, Christian started adding more content to his Instagram, showing that he's already working with artists. And more deals started to close. And with every little tweak to the process, it became sharper and more efficient. Ultimately, Christian got to a point where he didn't have to reach out as much to artists because they started coming to him first. Making money as a producer became easier because he stuck with it when it was not easy. And 12 months later, he shared this update in our community.
This weekend, the first tracks I made with clients since joining Dark Label the last summer got released. Not 1, not 2, but 3 tracks all in the same weekend. And for one of them, I ended up writing a press release for Billboard, which is pretty wild. Also, this was the first month in which I met my living expenses entirely through music-related income since starting Dark Label. I've got plenty of projects lined up for the next couple of months too. Oh, and I just broke 2,000 Instagram followers, up from 400 in March. So yeah, things are going pretty well. Crazy to think about where I was with music before joining Dark Label. That is literally nowhere, and now. Joining this tribe has been truly life-changing in every respect.
So Christian, it's been 12 months. How do you feel?
Honestly, it's pretty surreal. It's still hard to reckon with the progress that you can make in a year if you do the right things and put in the work and have the right guidance. And yeah, it feels like, a real achievement. I feel like I can say I'm a professional music producer with a straight face. And even trying to imagine where I am a year from now, if I put in the same amount of work and, nurture the same relationships and obviously build new ones and just continue doing what I'm doing, it's hard to even imagine where things could be in another year from now.
Inspired by Christian, we launched something new here at Dark Label called Groundwork that helps producers who are newer to the business side gain the confidence and skills they truly need to go all in on this career. A link to our website is in the description below. Feel free to reach out. And if you're still not ready to reach out yet, then that's totally cool. Watch this next video if you want to learn a little bit more about what producer development actually is.